How's it going, guys? Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm sitting here with Danny and Trevor, and I actually want to talk about something that came up a couple weeks ago. I saw a video. Apparently, there was this cop in Baltimore, and there was controversy about the arrest because he apparently found drugs at a house that he was raiding. But what he didn't know is that his body cam picked up footage before he found this drugs, and it shows him placing the evidence or possibly placing the evidence on the scene. And so now there's controversy saying, did they actually find it? Did they only record it because they had to reenact it that he found it? And so I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think this is something that's actual news, or you think this is just somebody trying to make fake news, trying to make the cops look bad, especially because it's in Baltimore?
Yeah, Baltimore's got quite the history with police versus people. I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah, definitely. They had riots.
Yeah. That the guy mysteriously, choked to death or as they loaded him up in the wagon. I mean, that was crazy. That wasn't that long ago either.
No.
So it's like that's the hotbed for it.
That's what makes this so interesting.
Yeah.
Is like, this does not look good for Baltimore PD.
It's such a weird dynamic too, because there's two sides to this story, really.
Speak your mind. What comes to mind first? What do you?
So,
I mean, just hearing that story, do you think it's legit, or do you think it's?
I think it very easily could be legit, and it probably is if it's on camera. Because the way I heard the story was that he didn't realize it was recording for 30 seconds before it actually recorded. So from what I heard was that it actually showed him planting the evidence. So if you heard it any differently, I don't know. But my thing is like this. Just hearing this story just makes me take a step back and realizing how human nature is. Like, there are good people and bad people in every job, everywhere. And police officers are no different. There's going to be great police officers, and then there's going to be sketchy police officers. Just like there's going to be great salesmen, there's going to be sketchy salesmen. And great doctors and sketchy doctors. It doesn't matter what field you're in, there's going to be good and bad employees. And I think what's happening now is with everything being recorded, everyone having a cell phone, everyone having the ability to put their opinion out on social media, you're going to see a lot more of the bad stuff because all we see is bad news. The news itself, the 6 o'clock news, is always going to be all the negative stories and then one story of a squirrel on a jet board or something.
Trevor, did you see the video, or is this the first time you're hearing about it?
It's the first time I hear about it.
So let me just break it down really quick. So the way the video worked out, it's the video itself is, you see the body cam footage, and it's very awkward. It almost looked staged because of the way they're talking to each other. It doesn't feel fluid, doesn't make any sense. He goes through the alleyway. He's like very specific about where he's looking, and then he says, "Oh, we don't see anything." And then all of a sudden he like beelines to a certain spot, and he's like, "Oh, found something." And the way it seems so staged is kind of what they're playing off of and saying, oh, okay, well, it was staged. Like, they found it before the camera turned on, so they had to reenact it for the camera so people can see what happened, basically. So that's what they're using as their defense, saying, oh, it wasn't, we didn't plant the evidence. We just had to stage how we found the evidence because of the body cams and how it's worked out now. So that's the two sides of things. It's either it was staged or it wasn't. So what comes to mind when you think of all that?
Before I say my opinion, Dane, when you say legit, are you saying that they staged it or that they planted it?
Oh, they could easily have planted it. That would be my first instinct on it.
Because I think you planted it. For
sure. That'd be my first instinct on it, and that's in no way a condemnation of Baltimore PD, but it just could be one cop that doesn't want to lose face. I mean, there's so many things that could be at play here.
If I remember correctly, I believe this cop has issues in the past also of cases having issues or something wrongdoings and stuff like that. I don't think this is his first time with having issues with cases, but I'm not 100% on that. I'd have to look it up and stuff, and I'm not going to do that right now. But
well, if you're saying he's bad with cases, why not? Could he just have forgot to turn on his cam? So they're like, oh, well.
I don't remember if he was actually had issues in the past, or if they're looking back at cases now because of this situation and now saying, oh, well, if he did this here, what about the evidence that he found in other cases? I think that's more what it was about. I think now that they're trying to use this case as like, oh, well, all the other cases in the past should be turned over now too, because who's to say he didn't plant evidence before? So now it's kind of like ruining his reputation.
I want to believe that they're just reenacting it. Like, that's what my heart wants to believe, but logically, and just by thinking of like how sketchy some cops could be. Like my mind wants to be like, nah, he's just trying to better himself and get ahead.
Because you want to have hope, right? You want to sit there and be like, no, the cops wouldn't do that. The cops are the good guys.
Exactly.
But then, like Danny's sitting there saying, they're employees. They're people too. I mean, I have good employees and bad employees. Everybody does. Every job does. I mean, not everybody's doing things right by the book. I mean, it's just nature. It's human nature. People make mistakes. People do things to get ahead. So in this situation, me specifically, I think it was this guy was just trying to do what he needed to do to get the job done. I don't know. I know exactly what
it's tough. I kind of get what you're saying too, because just kind of by happenstance, it's weird you bring this up, because just kind of by happenstance, I've been working in Reno and I've been out of town for a while, and been listening to a lot of podcasts because I've been on the road quite a bit, and I ran out of new podcasts to listen to, so I started going back and listening to some old ones. And kind of around the time when the Orlando shooting happened, so we're talking over a year ago.
Has it been easily? A year?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a while ago, man. It was like last summer, I think.
Man, it feels like it was like
it feels
a couple
like a long
months
time
ago.
Well, they were talking all that was coming up about all these mass shootings and the police and all that kind of stuff was coming up. And Rogan had a guy named Michael Wood, who was an ex-cop, and I believe it was in Baltimore, because he was telling all these stories about working in Baltimore, and he was talking about the evidence of corruption that he saw, and he was saying that there are a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good cops there too. But he says, but you're always gonna have your bad apples. It's just like exactly what I said. Like every job is gonna have that, and you can't escape that fact. And then on top of that, with the fact of, like I said before, social media being so front and present, and every 15-year-old kid has a cell phone, and younger probably, but they're able to record everything that's happening. No one records good stuff. Everyone records the bad stuff. And so every authority figure is going to get shown in a negative light, which is unfair to the good officers, especially in a job like being a police officer is, where a split-second decision could be your life.
Right.
The sick amount of stress that you have under that it's amazing. It's so unreal. Like, you're going into a war zone every day. And I know police officers. I'm actually friends with them. I've worked with them before in previous jobs, and I could not imagine doing that.
No, definitely.
I could. The amount of stress you must have going in to do that every day, and you got to be a soldier, and these are regular people that you're putting into this role. It's insane. There's no possible way I could do that, and I have so much respect for the people that do it the right way, just like you do for every person who does the job the right way. But there's always going to be those people.
Right, and I 100% agree. Everything you were saying, obviously, I had the utmost respect for any PD, any military, any of that. I mean, anybody that's going to put their life on the line every day to do something, that's just crazy to me. But what's even more crazy to me is I don't understand why people don't step up and say something about the bad apples.
Yeah.
I mean, why is there so many cops? Not so many cops. Why is there even one or two cops out there that are just being able to slide by because somebody doesn't want to say something, or they don't want to step out of line because it's not their place? Why does that happen? I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
That Michael Wood, who was on Rogan's podcast, he talked about that, and it's something that you see in sports teams. It's something you see in any communal group of people. You don't fuck with the group. You don't put down a brother or a sister. You don't do that. You don't be the snitch. You don't want to be the person that's going to throw someone who people consider to be an honorable person under the wheels of the bus. You just don't do it. That's why it's crazy when you see these big stories come out about police corruption. There's always a whistleblower, and then that person is blackballed forever. Any person that speaks out, if you're a police officer, is going to be blackballed. They're never going to get another job in a police organization, because even though they did the right thing, they're never going to be accepted by another group of officers, because they're always going to have that stigma of, oh, that guy doesn't have my back. Even though they did the 100% right thing and maybe spoke out against corruption. And that's why so much gets away with it. That's why cases of rape in the military don't get reported, or nothing gets done about it, because you don't want to put this emphasis on the bigger problem.
Well, you talk about, I mean, the brotherhood, and, every day could be your last in that field of work. So if you don't have their back, then how can you trust them?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why.
That's the thing. Watch End of Watch.
That movie's nuts.
Dude. You would die for that person. Mm-hmm. So even if, like I said, if someone makes the right decision and talks out about police corruption or something like that, you really want to trust a person who didn't have their brother's back, even though they did the right thing? Like, it's a
Yeah,
weird conundrum, man.
But you guys say it, but that almost gives it a pass to make it okay, and that doesn't make it okay. You don't sit there and just let it happen because you're like, oh, well, I got to make sure that guy's got my back, so I'm going to let him do what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make it okay, and it shouldn't be okay. That's why we have the cases that we have now, where we're having situations like this, where somebody's going to get away with something that is completely wrong, but nobody's going to call them out on it because that's just not what they do. But that mindset is completely wrong, and that's
the whole issue. That's the whole issue. It's the why it's happening. We all know it's not right, and I guarantee you, a lot of those people know it's not right too. But that's the whole system. Mm-hmm. That's the culture that has just grown up around bands of brothers. That is how it works. It's the whole "would you hide a body for me" thing.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, really, it is. And I'm not arguing for hiding it, but what I'm saying is I'm pointing out why people hide that stuff.
No, definitely.
Because it's like, we talked about it. Would you hide a body for your best friend? Like, would you be like, okay, no questions asked, let's do it. That's kind of what it is. And then also, like, what's so weird about this video is we don't know the whole dynamics behind this guy's mindset. What if he's losing face in the office? What if, like, at the beginning of his meetings, you know, they have their pre-shift. I did somewhat similar stuff with security, but it's like they have these pre-shift at the beginning of every briefing where they sit down, they tell you about your day, what you're going to do, all this kind of stuff. And what if, like, he's underperforming? He's feeling the pressure of, like, man, what if he's got kids? What if he's got a wife? You know, and he's like, man, I got to make something happen. I got to have something big happen because otherwise they're going to find out where I was sleeping in my patrol car the other day, you know, or whatever, you know, and like you have all these weird things. What if he's trying to impress another cop?
Or what if it's not even him? What if it's not him? Maybe he was just the scapegoat that had to do it, and it was somebody else that was forcing him to do it.
And this kind of shit happens.
See,
what if it was the chief of police?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, the scenario could be any which way. It could be A, B, C, or D.
Or he could be a scumbag. We don't know.
Or he could be a scumbag, yeah. But then there's also what about the guy that's getting accused for all this? Nobody's thinking about that person. I think that's the other big issue is, everybody's worried about, the cop, it's a band of brothers. Oh, what about, he's got a family. It's probably different. But what about the guy that's getting screwed over who probably has a family and fucking 18 kids, God knows. And he's getting freaking drugs planted on him that he doesn't even actually have, and ruining his life. What about, does that guy's life not matter because he doesn't have a badge? And that's the bigger issue is why is there a hierarchy? Why is it cops first, civilians second?
But in this scenario that you're bringing up, you're assuming that the guy that had the drugs possibly planted on him is a good guy. What if he's like one of the worst criminals in the area, but he's so good at his job of being a criminal that they can't find any evidence against him?
Then we're just playing the what if game. I'm just saying in my scenario, that's what I'm saying is if this guy, I personally believe that the drugs were planted, and so that makes that person innocent. Mm-hmm. Regardless if he's a good person or a bad person, an innocent person is an innocent person. So in that case, that guy's life is as important as anybody else's. So for him to get screwed over doesn't make sense to me. It'd be like when I got my DUI, if I didn't actually blow a .08, but the buddy in his car blew a .08, and I got screwed over for it just because this guy needed to get a raise and needed to bring in one extra person. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it works. That's just me blowing smoke. But in that situation, there would be nobody else to defend me other than myself. And when I went through that whole situation, nobody even listens to the person that's getting screwed over. I didn't talk to one person the whole time I was having my sentencing for my DUI, anybody at the DMV that was dealing with me, that we're just faces to them. It doesn't matter, but I guarantee these people with the badges have a lot more pull and a lot more say and can actually talk to people than the people that are getting screwed over. And I think that's what frustrates so many people is that the power is just so lopsided.
Well, yeah, it's the whole thing we've talked about before where absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you have the power over someone, the temptation is there to make yourself look good. The temptation is there to take advantage of situations. And that's where, like I said, bad people are going to thrive. They're going to thrive in a situation where they have absolute power. You can look at any case where we don't even have to talk about police. You can talk about corruption in the Novus Ordo Catholic Church. You could talk about that, where you have, these so-called clergy taking advantage of children that have no way of fighting back. It's
oh my god, I watched an amazing movie on that.
Yeah, was it the one with Mark Ruffalo?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what the name of it is. It's one about the Boston whatever Globe or something finding out all that
Somebody
stuff.
look that up because that
Yeah.
is. I highly recommend
Yeah,
people watch
I've
that.
been wanting to
Talk
watch
about
it.
a corrupt system.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, that's the thing too, and I think that's you just said corrupt system. I think that we need to kind of rethink how we do it, but the problem is it's just going to take time.
Right.
There's no way around it. You can't just go cold turkey on corruption. You
well, not
can't.
just time. It's going to take somebody brave enough to be able to take the heat.
Yeah.
Because it's a system. It's
Yeah.
not just one or two people. It's a system of people, and to be able to break the chain in that is very difficult.
And then also you have the go ahead with the movie. Did you look it up?
Yeah, it's Spotlight.
Yeah.
Spotlight. Yes,
I want to watch that.
I 100% recommend that to anybody that's listening right now. Please look it up. It's on Netflix, I believe.
Yeah.
Spotlight, an amazing movie. You will
Michael
not regret
Keaton's
it.
in that one too, I think, right?
Yep, yep, he is.
Um,
and Rachel McAdams
yeah.
for the ladies.
Yeah.
You
I like
want to
Rachel
open your mind?
McAdams.
That's one I highly recommend.
But anyway, back to what I was saying about the changes that need to happen. Yes, changes need to happen, but my only concern with like massive radical changes, which is kind of scary, is that it's going to create a massive power vacuum. It's the same thing that happens when police take like high level drug dealers off the streets, or we depose a dictator in some African country. There's an immediate power vacuum that happens where everyone, the bad people on that side of the fence, are going to jump in and all fight and create a huge clusterfuck to get to the top of power. And sometimes it makes it worse. Like look at Gaddafi. When Gaddafi got pulled out over there, dude, it's a horrible state now. It's a horrible situation going on in that country. Where it was almost like the lesser of two evils. But that's not obviously the situation that we're talking about now. But that's what happens if you do massive sweeping reform all in one shot. You're going to have that power vacuum.
I can see what you're saying. It's almost like a seesaw sitting at perfect balance, and if you put too much weight on one side, it's just going to cause issues on the other.
I mean, haven't we been seeing this for centuries and centuries and centuries? People are acting like, okay, this is the first time that government has ever been, a dick to its people. No, that's a story of civilization. Power has always been like that. And there's always been good people that have fought for trying to enforce the laws the right way. I mean, like I said, I know multiple cops, and they're all great people, at least from what I can see. They're all great people. And the way they enforce things is the right way of doing it.
Right. And yeah, and I mean, I'm not here saying that cops are bad or that they make wrong choices or that they're not brave enough to step up and say somebody's doing something wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying in the media's eyes or in the people's eyes now, that's the stigma that they're getting shown. That's the wool being pulled over their eyes, is this idea that cops have absolute power and civilians have nothing. And I want to know, at what point is it okay for the civilians to push for change, to push or to fight back? And I mean, obviously with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, that was their thing, and they maybe take the fight a little too far. But at some point, frustration gets to a boiling point, and it got to where it is because of it. And when there's nobody backing them, no cops going to their side and saying, yeah, you guys are right, we should try to help you. It was them it was basically Black Lives Matters versus cops. And I think it would have gone a long way if some of those cops would have crossed over and said, yeah, I see where you guys are coming from, and made peace that way. But it never happened. It was very black and white.
Well, how could you
No pun intended.
when your brothers are getting killed
Yeah, and
by vigilantes, basically?
yeah, and that's the thing
But-
too.
so
Is
you're
that's
not going to jump ship and be like, "Oh, sorry guys, I agree with these guys." Like, no, that could have been you that got shot just because you're wearing a badge.
Right, but that's looking at it. You're saying that all of them were vigilantes, and it wasn't.
well,
How are they
it's
not?
the same situation saying that why should the cops go? Oh, we're all bad then. You know what I mean? It's this, and that's the thing. It's going to be this eternal struggle between both sides having to answer. It's the many having to answer for the sins of a few, and that's what it boils down to. Is there's this. I think the only way you could do it was maybe try to get like Rogan always says, that council of elders. You know, he could get that council of elders. You know, the civilians that actually are involved in the community that will.
The
maybe
chosen
partner,
few
maybe instead of being 100-0 on power, you know what I mean? Maybe go 51-49. You know what I mean? Like you do something to where people are more involved in their communities, and there are communities that are doing that. There are progressive communities that are trying to work that way, to where they're trying to involve civilians and giving them more of an input into how laws are going to be enforced and whatnot. And I think a lot of it's dialogue. You know, that was the one thing I think you were talking about with the whole BLM thing versus the cops. It was like, there wasn't as much dialogue. You might see the occasional video on Facebook, but it was like dialogue really broke down once those cops were assassinated in Texas. I think that really was the point where I think the casual people were just like, oh crap, this is bad.
Well, and you think, I mean, the numbers got way too large. I mean,
Yeah.
once you start having thousands and thousands of people, at some point you have the wrong people in a situation that they probably shouldn't even be in. And then they're causing chaos at that point. If it was, like you said, the chosen few from one group and the chosen few from the other sitting at a table, I'm sure things could be handled very differently. But that it never got to that point.
And what's bad is those chosen few, if I have to bet Vegas odds on this, those chosen few are going to be corrupt as fuck. Like really, on both sides. Because the people that are actually in power on both sides that are pushing it are in it mostly for their own good. That's the sad part. They want to come out of it looking rosy. Yeah, and then also we haven't even looked at the other aspect of this, which you kind of mentioned a little bit. Or take that back. You mentioned it a little bit. Is the fact that the media is pushing all of this down our throats. They're creating problems where there is not problems. You know, it's just like a lot of this stuff. If the media didn't fan the flames, we wouldn't have as many of these issues as we have.
Is it though? Or is it the media showing us something that we never even realized was there?
See,
That's the flip
I think
side.
we realize it's there, but I think that they take a molehill and turn it into a mountain. I really do. I think they'll take one story and immediately spin a web of like cops are bad and they're taking all the power over the civilians and they're all acting that way. I think that a lot of stuff gets really blown out of proportion. Not even just with this story, but with everything. The media has widened the gulf between, for example, liberals and conservatives. They have really widened the gulf on that, and that's media driven. Media is creating these stories.
With that point, would you rather the media not cover it and just ignore that it's even happening, or would you still want it there and pick and choose what you believe and what you don't believe?
The problem with the media is that they're picking a side. Media should not be allowed to pick a side
Well,
because
the media can pick a side. You just have to decide what side you want to pick.
No,
people are sheep. People will listen to the media.
You don't.
No, here's the thing. I think this is what you're saying. And it's the media should report the news. They should not be editorials. They should not be editorializing the story, because when you editorialize something, you pick a side. And that's what the media is doing. That's why the Washington Post has gotten in trouble. That's why all these major newspapers and news organizations have gotten in trouble, is because they're picking sides and they come out looking pretty damn foolish when it isn't true. So I think they need to stick to reporting the news, and they need to prove to the American people that they have integrity again. Because this whole last election cycle and a lot of these issues that we've been talking about have really fucked the media over. People are realizing I would much rather get my news. We've talked about this. I'd rather get my news on YouTube from a regular person. I'd much rather watch the videos that the BLM people are posting or that cops are posting about it. I would much rather watch that than take a major news organization seriously, because they're proven liars now.
No, yeah. I could see that for sure.
They got to get their integrity back. I guess.
And then that's basically, because we have had an episode about that before where we're sitting there saying the media is basically, they're just going for headlines. They're not really covering the story correctly. And that's what's
Clickbait.
Yeah, clickbait. And I get that. But I also wouldn't want media to just go away.
No.
Obviously.
You can't, because then you lose.
Regardless if
free
it's
speech.
fake news or not fake news. I mean, without it, we're blind.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't get to see what's going out there. It might be for the better. Maybe it would be. Maybe we would live better lives and we would just be happy in this little fake world that we're living in. But
you can't take it away though. Free speech, you can't. Yeah,
you just can't. I wouldn't want to be that closed-minded or in a bubble. I wouldn't want to only know what's happening in Modesto. Like that would drive me crazy. I mean, I'd like to be able to get on the internet and see what else is out there. To that point, did you guys see the video of the ride at the fair? Not exactly sure which fair it was. It was a ride. I don't exactly remember, but it was one of those quick fairs, like the Stanislaus Fair and everything that goes up. They put up. One of the rides broke mid spin in the air, and I believe
I just picture one of the cage spinning ones. It
was. Yeah, I don't know if it was like a fireball or something like that. It was one of those where it was like on a pendulum and swings up and down, went straight up, and something broke. Something wasn't installed correctly, and 2 or 3 of the pieces just flew out. And I believe one person lost a leg. One person died. It was a crazy story.
Where was this?
Man, I honestly,
It was like
Ohio.
Megan's trying to tell you. You could tell me.
Ohio.
You can speak. Ohio.
Ohio.
Okay. Do you remember what the ride
She's our
was? Or
Jamie.
Fireball. Ooh, look at me go. But yeah, so, and I was sitting there thinking about it, I was like, this kind of goes into a mix of what we're talking about, how some employees are just, some are good, some are bad, and you can't really pick and choose what you're going to have. It's just, you get what you get.
It's human nature.
Exactly.
People are going to fake it till they make it, and they might be able to fake their way past their exams. They might be able to get past their physical test. They might be able to become a police officer. Doesn't mean they're going to be a just person.
Exactly.
And it'll be the same for someone, making tacos. Same thing. You're going to have a guy who makes a fucking amazing taco and really takes pride in cutting those onions the right way.
Amazing taco.
You don't know if that cop,
literally the most amazing taco you've ever had.
You don't know if that cop that's pulling you over is some new kid that's never done it before and just doing the best that he can. And you don't know that the guy that's making your chili at freaking Wendy's is shitting in your chili. It's just,
very true.
You just don't know.
I don't even. Oh God, we had chili fries yesterday.
But that does make me think. So to get on a lighter note, the fair and the rides and stuff like that. Do you guys trust that? Have you guys gone on a ride at the fair?
I don't like pop-up fairs. I'm not a fan of those. I'd rather go to an amusement park.
I will never get on a ride at a pop-up fair.
I definitely won't now, for sure. After that, what I just saw on the video is disgusting. Like, people are flying. But I always thought about that. I'm like, these things get put up and put down so quick, and I know employees. I mean, I've worked in a restaurant my whole life. Not saying that my restaurant is bad at all. My restaurant is 5-star. You guys would love it. But I know employees. Some are just lazy. You have a bad day. You wake up in the morning. You don't tighten a bolt because you thought 3 turns was enough.
And especially some of those fairs, I'm here like, well, let me tell you, bro, I tightened all 7 or 8 bolts. I don't know how many were on there, but fireball.
do we need this extra screw? Nah, they just put that for just looks. You're fine.
But it's human nature. You're always going to have lazy people. You're always going to have industrious, hardworking, people that are well-meaning. And it's just the way it is. I mean, this, like, to get back to the whole cops and civilians thing, you're going to have good cops, you're going to have bad cops, you're going to have good civilians, you're going to have bad civilians. I mean, it's human nature. And when a cop takes off the badge, I mean, in essence, he goes home to a wife and family and all that stuff. So in essence, he kind of becomes a civilian. That's the crazy part.
Does he?
They're normal people. They're normal people. That's what's crazy.
I don't think the badge ever truly comes off, though.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a level playing field. Not even close.
Because even if they get pulled over by a cop when they're off duty, they're going to be like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was you.
Oh, Joe, it's you? Oh, I'm sorry. Tell Lisa I said hi. Have a good one. No, I got pulled over for going 5 miles over the freaking speed limit. I didn't even get to say a word. They just told me to shut up and get my freaking license.
I got a motorcycle cop. I don't like motorcycle cops.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't like them. They tend to take a little more pride in giving you a ticket.
Like, don't get me wrong. I love cops. I obviously, if something was going on, they would be the first person I'd call. I wouldn't call one of you guys. I would call the cops. Something's happening.
Unless you're hiding that body.
Yeah, but we need them, and I'm not saying we don't need them. I'm just saying the playing field is not even close to level. The fact that you don't get to speak unless spoken to, and then when they even speak to you, you don't get to say anything other than yes or no. Like, it's not level. And if you even try to have a conversation, it's not possible. They want to get in and out and get their job done and on to the next one, which I understand because they probably have 10,000 calls coming in and they need to get
stressful.
Places. And it's stressful. They don't know who you are. They don't know what's going on. But to be treated that way when you're just when they take off that badge, they go to McDonald's like you go to McDonald's, like, to not be on the same playing field drives me crazy.
Yeah, I think though, I mean, each car they walk up to when they're pulling somebody over, it could be their last car that they ever walk up to. That's why it's such a stressful. You need to shut up. Let me do my thing so I can get out here because their lives are at risk.
They're a target, especially nowadays. Every single time they get out of a car, they're a target. I would always see on the cameras at my last job, you'd always see police officers would always try to find a spot to do their paperwork, especially at night because I worked a lot of graveyards. Yeah. They would always, cover their six every time. They'd back into, a spot where there was no way people could come up from behind them. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, because especially at night when you're on a laptop in the night blindness, like you're looking at a screen and you look away and everything's pitch black, and it's so sketchy, man. I couldn't handle that. Why do you think like divorce rates are so high and like, life expectancy is bad and, it's rough, man. It's so rough. I don't know how people do it.
It definitely is. And then anytime something happens, they have to like change the law to make sure it's safer for them. Like, what was it? A cop got like sideswiped on the road when they were trying to do a routine traffic stop. And then all of a sudden now cars have to be like 2 lanes over from any car that's being pulled over. Like, you can't be in the same lane next to them or you can get in trouble for that too. Yeah.
I think the big thing though, really, that we could take away from this is that police officers and people, they just have to be just be more involved in the community. We used to have this idea of like the Andy Griffith type cop, the guy who was like your best friend and, oh shucks, don't drink that out in the street, like you used to have that where everyone was just really like, cops were your friends and they were your buddies and they were integral parts of your community where, if a cop's walking by, you'd, oh, come on in, have a slice of pie, that kind of thing. And it's so impersonal now. And I think that's the big thing. It's very impersonal. No one walks the beat anymore. In big cities in New York, Untouchables, you watch the Untouchables, Sean Connery's walking the beat, people were integral parts of society. Oh, that's not a police officer, a nameless, faceless man behind a badge. That's Mike.
Yeah.
That's Dave. You were respected by the people you worked with because they knew you were there to help them. And now it's just, you're in a car and you're blocked off and you got blacked out windows and you're just driving this thing around and everyone has this assumption like you could be driving 5 miles an hour under the speed limit. Cop gets behind you, your heart starts beating.
Yep.
And I am white. I can only imagine like how stressful that must be like in inner cities and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like where there's corruption, like ours, I don't know how much corruption we have here, but you know what I mean? Like if you're in like a place like Baltimore, like we were talking about, I mean, there's just major corruption on all sides of the fence.
And then I could see where I mean, I'm not saying that the riots and all that stuff is justified or anything like that, but when you're in somewhere like that where you're seeing your neighbors and stuff getting killed, not saying that it wasn't justified or not, but when you're seeing that stuff, when that cop gets up behind you, your first thought is, oh shit, I'm going to die. So I can understand why there's that fear there, but also on the cop side of things, the same thing. I'm getting behind this car. I don't know who's in this driver's seat. I could die. So I understand all that. But like you said, in Modesto, I mean, we're not the inner cities. We're not seeing that all the time. You would like to be able to have that connection with the police officer that's supposed to be helping you out and stuff like that. But you don't. Not here. And Modesto's not that big, but it's just not like that. It's a business more than anything. And the cops that are here, I mean, I've had conversations with a lot of them. We have, especially with the security team that's supposed to be surveilling our jurisdiction over by Fuddruckers. We had to sit down with their chief of police and stuff like that, and they're like, well, we only have so many vehicles that are able to get to this side of town during this time period and stuff like that. So if
budget
you do make
cuts.
a call, budget cuts and stuff like that. So I understand why they get a bad rap, because when people are calling them, it takes them a while to get there, and it's a frustrating job. I can understand, but it's because of how it's been turned into more of a business and not so much the cop just walking around doing
That's
good
everything.
deeds.
We talked about money. That's what it all comes down to.
Definitely.
I think you almost answered your frustration with it not being personal. It's just the numbers far outweigh how many are working the beats. I mean, let's just say there's 70 cops in Modesto. Well, we have over 100,000, probably more than that, in this city alone.
Oh, we have almost 300,000.
Yeah, so tell me that 70 people are going to know everybody? I mean, there's just no way. The numbers just don't add up to that. And like you said, the budget cuts, they're only going to get smaller. So it's only going to get less personal at this point.
Yeah.
And all you're doing now, it's kind of sad too, but you are only doing prevention now as a cop. Like you're not even doing that. You're doing reaction, not prevention, is what I'm trying to say. You're really just reacting to all the bad things that are happening. You can't do any good if you're just reacting, and that's a sad thing.
When was the last time when you guys got a speeding ticket?
Probably about 10 years ago.
10 years? Good for you.
I mean, I'm not saying I...
No, I didn't ask. I didn't ask that. Danny?
Pretty recently.
I probably shouldn't have put you on the spot for that. But
Danny?
Pretty recently, and it was a situation where it was a few miles an hour over the speed limit, and it was a motorcycle cop, and he didn't put the lights on me until we had been stopped at a stoplight. And then we started driving again, and then he put the lights on me. I didn't realize why I was being pulled over.
Doesn't that drive you nuts?
Well, yeah, and it was in the fact that it was the same situation you mentioned earlier, where it was 2 words, license, registration, here's your ticket.
Yeah.
I didn't even get a chance. I didn't even know why I was being pulled over at first.
Talk about the most frustrating possible thing. And then have you got the ticket yet? Do you know how much it is?
Oh, yeah.
How much is it? A lot?
A lot.
Yeah.
I think he
For
put,
2
put
seconds
down,
of your time.
Yeah, exactly. He put
That you were already stopped and then started driving again after.
2-lane road, 2-lane road, which should easily, like in our area, it's like 45 usually. Apparently it's 30, and I was going 40.
You piece of crap.
I know.
How
right?
dare you?
Yeah.
You can't
And
kill
which
somebody.
was
Get a moped.
which was slower than I was in the slow lane, slower than the rate of traffic as well. But I got it probably because I was driving slower.
The only reason I bring this up because I know everyone can relate to this, and this is the reason people like get so frustrated because of stuff like that. I mean, I've been in that same situation. I think I have 3 or 4 speeding tickets on my record. I'm not 100%. It's been a while since I've got one.
So they're probably off your record by now.
Yeah, by now, yeah. and I drive a truck now, and it's like impossible for me to speed in my truck. Big vehicles, I just drive slow. I feel like a grandpa out there. But not my point. My point is everybody's been in that situation. It's extremely frustrating because one, you know it's going to be stupid expensive. Like I'm sure it was 200 plus
Easy. Yeah.
for something that really wasn't a big deal. You're going a few miles over the speed limit, and you know there's other cars doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And it just kills you because you don't know that $200 something could be what was going towards rent that you can't pay anymore after your 7 days of work that you just worked. That's what drives me crazy is the fees don't justify the cost.
And my thing too is like I would not have a problem getting a ticket for 1 mile an hour over the speed limit if I could have a conversation and if I could just understand what was going on. Because let me tell you what, tickets work. I have driven so fucking carefully. I put cruise control on my car nonstop. If
At 40? Right at 40?
30.
Oh, 30.
If it's, I look at the speed limits now, and if it's a 25, I'm driving 25. People are honking going around me. I'm not getting another ticket. And that makes me a safer driver. So I see the pro side of it, but I would like to have a conversation. I would like to be able to explain, hey man, you know, I'm giving you a ticket because you were doing this. If I just got a little more human interaction, I wouldn't be so upset about it.
I 100% agree. I think
that's all it takes. I'm not complaining. I broke the law. That's the law. I broke it.
Tiny bit of
Don't
conversation.
agree with it, but
tiny bit of conversation would change everything because you get to vent a little bit. You get to explain yourself, regardless of the fact you know you were speeding. You're gonna get a ticket. That's out the window. But to be able to say something, it changes everything.
I don't know if you remember, but in high school, I think we were either freshmen or sophomores. I think we might have been sophomores in high school. We were sophomores, Megan's clarifying. My mom dropped us off and we had to cross this like side street to go to high school. And there was two motorcycle cops that were behind like 3 or 4 cars, and the car waved us across. Mind you, there's like 50 kids crossing with us. I mean, it's completely scattered, tons of kids crossing. But the cops pull us over and give us both a ticket while there's still hundreds of kids crossing the same street because we jaywalked.
Jaywalking, going to school.
It was the most ridiculous situation I've ever been a part of.
Motorcycle cop, yeah. And I do remember that. That's so funny. That was so
How much is the jaywalking ticket?
I don't think we had to pay anything. We just had to take like a few classes.
We had to pay. I think it was like $25 or something like that.
That's why I don't remember.
45? Megan said
okay,
45.
Megan.
Megan's our new fact checker, by the way.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. I remember the
I remember the class. It was like about like driving. I'm like, I don't even have a license yet. Why am I here?
I'll tell you what, though. Like Danny said, I'll never jaywalk again.
No,
not on purpose.
You think about it. Like, okay, so that was my second ticket, and both of them were for like 5 to 10 miles an hour over, which is really frustrating.
Man, if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the worst part was this last one. I got pulled over, and I didn't even understand why I was being pulled over. I thought maybe he was pulling me over because I have a cracked windshield. I thought that was it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some fucking bullshit ticket for a cracked windshield, or he's gonna be like, fix it, yeah, or just fix it, man. But he pulls me over, and he's like, license and registration comes back, and he's like, this is your ticket for speeding. You were 10 miles an hour over. Boom, gone. I'm like,
bye.
What the heck? And then what really pissed me off too, with my little pet peeve, was that he had one of those portable printers, you know, that print out the ticket.
So he was already printing it out as he was coming up.
No. The ink was faded. So I'm like, really? You're giving me a ticket so you can get the ink replaced in your fucking printer? Like, oh my gosh. Budgets can't be that bad. But no, I mean, it is what it is.
No, I hear you. I mean, when I got
what it is. He's probably a great cop. I mean,
when I got my DUI, that was a super shitty night. It was super late at night. I think it was like 2 a.m. Megan? Yep, 2 a.m. 2
a.m.
I remember it sucks so bad just because I knew it was going to happen for one. I mean, I got pulled over.
I
knew. I just knew. So I get pulled over. The cops are actually pretty nice. I don't know if they were actually nice or if I was drunk and just having a good time.
You are a happy drunk.
Hey, buddy.
They're actually fairly nice about it. But I do remember everything that happened. Like, I remember getting handcuffed. I remember getting in the back of the car. And then now every time I drink, I'm like, nope, not happening.
Yeah.
Thank God for Uber. Like
Yeah.
it was so expensive, like $200 for speeding.
Oh, I know.
So
I know
worth it.
how. Yeah.
I think my ticket ended up being like $2,500.
Then everything else.
And that was just the fine for the DUI. And then my license got taken away. And I had to take a class. It was 4 to 6 months of
I remember
these 6-hour classes once a week. And I had to pay like $500 for these classes. And then I had to...
You had to get the reinstatement license fee.
Yeah.
You probably had to do all that kind of stuff, huh?
It was all the trips to the DMV. And so this is the crazy thing that just drove me the most nuts. It wasn't the cops that pissed me off. It was all the trips to the DMV and how much the DMV could care less who you are, what you're there for. You're just like pawns to them, just trying to ship you in and out of there. And it takes forever. And you don't get any answers. It's like talking to an automated service when you're trying to get like something done, like with warranty or something like that. And you're just like, press 1 for this, press 2 for this. And it's just like the most frustrating thing. But I remember if there was just a little bit of communication, like you said, it would have changed everything. Like it wasn't the money that bothered me. It was the fact that nobody communicated throughout everything. And I feel like that's the problem with how the judicial system is kind of working right now. Whether it's going to court or anything, there's no communication. It's just you're supposed to know and you don't. So you got to sit there and go home and Google everything to figure it out. And it's frustrating. And that's what causes frustration, causes anger, and anger causes riots. So a little communication would go a long way.
I think that's kind of going full circle back to the beginning of the story about Baltimore. Is a lot of these problems could be solved, like you just said, with communication. I think that could be a big thing. I would have been a lot happier with my situation if I'd gotten a few sentences. You know, just a little, the ability, like you said, to say something. It makes you, as a human being, it makes you feel a little bit better about a situation that could be happening to you. If you feel like, even if it's not true, you feel like you could have some say about it.
It brings a balance for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge factor in this whole scenario.
That's all for today's episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast on SoundCloud or iTunes to get all updates on future content. And just remember, it's not important who's right or wrong, but it's always important to ask why.